to this point in time. So if you do have questions, please put those into the chat, and Courtney, I'll start taking questions when you're ready.
All right, Bob, we got one question here. Will there be a distance learning option for parents who are not comfortable with their children attending school in person? 100% distance learning option.
That's a great question. We're still taking a look at, our primary goal is going to be face-to-face. Whether we're going to offer a total distance option, we're not sure at this particular time, but that is a question that we have heard, and we are looking into what might be the possibilities to do that, and would we be funded for that from the state of Washington as well. So we are looking into it. We anticipate that we might have some families that may feel that would be the best option at this point in time.
All right. How would mask wearing be enforced when students are outside of class? Also, is breathing CO2 all day another health risk?
So again, wearing masks outside, again, it's difficult for me when I go outside to wear a mask. And so again, I think it's going to be working with our students to encourage them to keep that mask on if they're close. If they're far away, then with masks, at least they'll have their masks. How we're going to keep them on all day is a great question, but I think we keep working with our students to make sure that they're comfortable with wearing masks. With the CO2 and masks, one of the things we are working on is increasing our air exchange in all of our schools to pull in more fresh air more often, to make sure that we're providing the best air quality as possible. We're also looking at making sure our filters are changed on a more regular basis, or if we can find better filters to help purify the air, we can also take a look at that option.
What's the time frame for a final plan to be provided to parents?
Great question. So final plan recommendations from the subcommittees are due by August 1st. We then have to consolidate that plan, take it to the board, and then forward it on to the office, the Superintendent of Public Instruction, for approval. We have been told that our plan needs to be approved by OSPI at a minimum of 2 weeks before the school year starts. So that's going to be a quick turnaround come August 1st. I envision in 2 weeks, we'll have that put together, submit it to OSPI, submit it to the board, and be waiting for approval. So about mid-August, we should have a plan out for parents.
And on that same note, Bob, will there be another meeting after that?
Another meeting describing the plan, I'm assuming?
Yes.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to have another meeting so we can go over aspects of that, so that not only staff, students are aware, but our community is aware as well.
Can middle school classes be taught keeping the same group of kids together, more similar to elementary school?
We are exploring that option. It's really difficult right now in the initial planning stages of that, because students have such diverse schedules. We are going to try to adhere to OSPI's guidance of trying to keep students together as much as possible. I think a lot of that depends on whether we're able to have students there every day, or if we have to go on a split schedule, where they're attending every other day, or 2 days on, 2 days off, that type of thing.
Will it make a difference if Whitman County goes back to phase 2 or phase 1?
If we go back to phase 2 or phase 1, we're probably looking at more remote learning than face-to-face. That's a strong possibility.
Okay. What will the protocol be when there are positive COVID tests for students or teachers?
That's a great question. So right now, what we're understanding from the guidance is that if a student or a staff member tests positive, we will be working directly with the health department. Most likely what they're telling us now is that that classroom may be vacated for a day or two to do deep cleaning. but not necessarily shutting down the school. So we'll have to be working very closely with our health department to see if that's truly going to be the plan. I think it also depends on the number of students. Is it one? Is it two? For a staff member, obviously, we'd have to take a look at what does that mean as far as working remotely or bringing in a substitute. But in any case, that classroom would have to be entirely sanitized and disinfected before we would have students or staff return. And we'd have to do some contact tracing as well to see what other parts of the schools they may have visited. So it's going to be pretty complicated.
If we are in phase 3 in August, will the maximum number of students in a building be 50?
Right now, they're telling us that we can go above the 50. So they're talking about us opening schools, face-to-face instruction with students in classrooms with physical distancing. So we're trying to look at how many students can we get into a 925 square foot classroom. And it's hard if we're going to do 6 feet. Getting about 20 students in there is really, really tight. If we put more than that in, then we're probably looking at less than 6 feet. But they know with having students in schools that we're not going to be able to always maintain 6 feet distance between students, especially during passing period, for example.
And you might have answered a question similar to this, Bob, but what is the plan if one or more students are found to be infected?
Again, the plan right now, we have our health and safety committee that's meeting, subcommittee. What we've been told through OSPI is that if we do have students that show up positive, we'll be contacting the health department and following whatever guidance that they issue.
Is there a plan to tailor the online learning experience?
We are taking a look at, we have a subgroup that's looking at the online learning experience and taking a look at students, staff, and parent surveys that were returned. We had over 708 parent surveys returned. So we know we need to take a look at reducing the number of platforms. We also need to be looking more at student schedules, really taking a look at how we can improve that if we need to go to that part-time or full-time.
For our high school 9th grade students, what plans are in place to introduce them to the high school procedures, classes, expectations, etc.?
We're still hoping that we will have both a middle school and high school orientation in August. Now that may look like something a little bit different and phased out in small groups of students where they have assigned times to come. So that's what we'll be working on over the summer to kind of plan that out. Very similar to what we did with graduation gown pickup, getting photos for graduation, Chromebook distribution, Chromebook return, really looking at a schedule so that we're ensuring physical distancing and maximizing safety protocols.
Will students and staff be required to test for COVID prior to the beginning of the school year?
There is no requirement to test for COVID for students or staff prior to the school year. No.
Due to the disruption of online teaching, has the school district considered, instead of the school year with a completely new group of students, some teachers staying with their students for a second year at the next grade level, i.e. looping, especially for younger elementary students?
We've had some initial discussions about that, but very on the surface. That might come up as that teaching and learning group have more conversation. That's a great question, and I know we briefly talked about that, but I would have to get back with teaching and learning to see after the first couple of meetings where they're landing with what that might look like.
All right, Bob. So, sorry, let me go back up here. I think the concern about breathing CO2 may be about having students wear the mask all day, which can have them breathe in their own bacteria. Some reports show health concerns of wearing masks for 8 hours.
Yeah, I know that wearing a mask, I mean, even at work, wearing a mask is for 8 hours is very uncomfortable. And the CO2, I'm sure that there would be during the day opportunities for students to take their mask off and breathe a little bit clearer. I envision our students going outside maybe as groups of classes to get some fresh air, get some movement. Um, but right now, what they're telling us is students will have to wear a mask and so will staff. And the superintendent of public instruction made that pretty clear in his last few meetings.
All right. Will there be self-attestation for students?
We're still waiting to hear that. We are doing that for staff right now. It's working very well. We're hoping that we will have something like that either locally determined, or the state has been talking about an app for parents and for students. So stay tuned, but I envision that we'll probably have something similar to that.
Are there options for teachers in risk groups?
Um, for teachers who are at a high risk, we will be following the labor and industry rules and regulations. So students will follow the Department of Health rules and regulations, and staff will be following both labor and industry rules and regulations, plus the Department of Health regulations. But there will be, I envision, some accommodations that we'll have to take a look at for staff.
Are there going to be any sports and clubs when school starts?
I really hope so. That's our goal, to try to figure out a way to do clubs and to do sports. Right now, we are working on some guidelines that we put together for summer training, and they're pretty restrictive, but we're going to start out slow with that and see how that works and see how we need to adjust or modify. WIAA, who is the governing body for high school sports and middle school, just came out with their guidelines yesterday. I have not finished reading all the guidelines, but they're aimed at fall sports. So we're really hoping that we'll be able to do some type of sports and clubs and activities next year.
What can be done for mental health with students during this time? Seems like they may not be able to see and build friendships as traditional as I imagine more social distancing.
Yeah, that's a big concern that we have, is the social emotional well-being, not only of our students, but our staff. There is a subcommittee that is totally focused on social emotional health and well-being of students and staff. They're going to be looking at some screeners that we could use in the fall. Also looking at some professional development for our staff, as well as some teaching and how we can expand our social emotional teaching strategies for our students, and what kind of supports we might be able to put together. That's a really high area of concern for us. And we do have one group that specifically is going to focus on recommendations in that area.
For families with family members in high risk groups, will there be an option to select distance learning only? Or is the only option to unenroll and independently homeschool our kids?
So that's kind of the second question we've got on that, but that's a great question. We are trying to figure out if we can set up remote learning, and will the state allow us to do that and help us fund that. The goal is going to be face-to-face, but we do know that there is concern with some families and some groups for some online learning opportunities. So we are going to have to take a look at that. It might be limited in scope, but I think that's something that we need to take a look at.
How will teachers be supported if they are asked to teach both in class and online? It looks like they may have to do both every day.
Yeah, that's a question that we're looking at right now. We're talking with staff that'll be on our subcommittees working on that. We're trying to envision what that would look like. Some models that some other states are looking at and some other districts are 2 days in the classroom, 2 days online, and then a day to plan. So we're taking a look at what all the different options might look like. It's definitely challenging to do both face-to-face and online. And so we're taking a look at how we could structure that so that it is manageable. We're still getting some quality education under that type of scenario.
All right. How is bus transportation going to be affected come August?
That is a great question, and that's one of our big concerns as well. If you look at the OSPI guides on transportation, it's interesting that they don't have the 6-foot minimum rule for transporting on bus. They advise us to social distance students as much as we can and to leave the windows down on the bus. Well, you can imagine in December what that might look like if windows are down on a bus. And we have 70 passenger bus, and we know we're not going to be able to put 70 students on there at a time. So we may be looking at running a bus several times just to one stop. We have a couple stops that have over 100 kids at each stop. So we are really going to have to take a look at transportation and see how we can safely social distance students on a bus and be able to transport them to school in time for school to start. So we may be looking at longer bus runs. And we also need to be taking a look at our bus staff is very capable and is a great group of people, but we may be asking them to work longer and do longer runs in order to accommodate. We're not sure yet with the city, with the trippers, what social distancing might look like, and are we going to have to run more city buses more often in order to get students to school on time. So we are looking at the transportation piece.
Have you considered an optional 100% remote learning option for families? This may appeal to families with high-risk groups or those with the means to do so.
Yeah, we are going to take a look at that and see what that might look like and how we might be able to put that together.
How will teachers work with highly capable students, especially if there's remote learning? Will extra or different activities or homework be provided?
We're definitely going to look at highly capable. We're also going to look at our ELD population, our special education population. We know remote learning. We learned a lot this spring. We know that we're going to have to take a look at more activities. I'm not necessarily sure it would be more homework, but I think we need to take a look at more activities and how might we able to do more project-based activities.
Are there plans in place for the SAT exams this fall?
That is a great question. We're waiting to see what's going to happen with both SAT and ACT. We haven't received information yet, but I'm sure that we will be receiving that sometime this summer.
Some families are single parents or don't have flexibility with work. What is being considered for families who may not have flexibility for home learning?
Did you say that one again, Courtney? I'm sorry.
Some families are single parents or don't have flexibility with work. What is being considered for families who may not have flexibility for home learning?
Again, that's a great question, and that's going to be something that we're going to pose with our subcommittee groups to figure out if they can come up with some strong recommendations on how we can help accommodate that.
Will music education be considered specifically? I understand that singing and band instruments may be more prone to spreading the virus, especially inside.
Yeah, that was a topic of conversation at a statewide meeting I attended last week. Right now, they're trying to come up with some additional guidance they're really worried about band, choir, what that will look like. Right now, we're talking about moving those particular classes to a much larger area, such as maybe moving choir or band out at PHS into the theater rather than in the classroom, and spreading them out as much as we can. So we are looking at utilizing different rooms to accommodate band or choir.
Also, somebody who's participating shared a link with everyone regarding CO2 levels and masks. So if you're interested, there's a link in the chat box.
Thank you.
But the next question is, how does the process for qualifying for special accommodations that require classroom observation be modified?
So we are taking a look at different models as far as some of those pieces being adjusted and not required, or setting up an observation remotely.
What times during the day will children be able to remove their masks? How will physical education class still occur?
Great questions again. What we're envisioning right now, and this will be worked out in finer detail, but obviously eating lunch or breakfast would require the mask to be off. Actually, we're taking a look at recess or breaks throughout the day where they could safely distance outside and get a break from wearing the mask. So we're also looking at PE activities may be different. Right now we're looking at summer training programs where students have to stay in a group of 5 and they can't interact with anyone else. They have their own basketball, for instance, so they're running drills independently. There's no contact. So some of our PE, a lot of those close up together sports or dance may be not conducted as far as the fall, and maybe we're relying on some different sports that are more socially distance appropriate activities, I should say.
Has a threshold been determined of how many staff or students need to test positive before the school is completely closed again?
No threshold has been established as far as I know of. I think that's going to be a great question, and I think that's going to be something that we'll hear more about as we get closer to fall. I am really concerned as you look at Spokane and even Whitman County, we seem to have a new increase in cases, and they could move us back to phase 2 or phase 1, and that would definitely affect whether we're going to open school or not.
If parents have the ability to drop off and pick up to avoid unnecessary exposure on buses, will there be a different procedure for that? And will 2 or 3 families be able to do a joint or carpool drop off to reduce vehicle congestion?
Yeah, that's a question that they address a little bit in the state guidance. They do talk about encouraging families to drop off and pick up their students. I think for a lot of families, as far as carpooling, I think they need to obviously have a close relationship and be aware of the safety of the students, and I think if they're willing to enter into a carpool, I think that's fine. I think we're going to have to take a look at how our systems are set up as far as when students exit a bus or exit a vehicle, staying 6 feet apart, making sure that we have a large enough area so that students can line up or enter the classroom right away, maybe using different multiple points to enter school or exit a school so they're not all coming out 1 or 2 doors. So we're taking a look at a lot of transition and flow diagrams for each building to reduce the amount of contact students would have with one another in close proximity.
Is the school district providing masks for students and staff?
For staff, we are required to provide masks due to L&I rules and regulations. The superintendent from the Office of Public Instruction said that schools are not required to provide masks for students, but we will have masks available if students need them. So we are looking at purchasing some masks. We also have some groups in the community that are sewing masks for our students. So we'll be purchasing, and I've already received a donation from some disposable masks, but we will have masks. What we're looking at right now is asking that students bring their own masks that they're comfortable with, and probably having 2 masks. What we're thinking right now is having a mask that will stay at school and a mask that they'll use to travel back and forth. So that's what we're thinking right now. We're trying to think of a lot of things, and we know kids are going to lose masks when they're at school. They're going to drop them or forget them somewhere. So I myself, I think, have 4 masks sitting around my office right now because I'm always dropping them or losing them. So, and I have to wash them occasionally. So, but we'll obviously ask, parents to provide masks, but it's not going to be required. We will have masks available for students.
Will teachers be able to share their general teaching plans for this semester with parents so that parents can better facilitate children's learning at home at their own pace?
Yeah, I think a syllabus outlining what the essential standards would be. We're asking staff right now to really look at what were the standards that were covered this spring and which ones we need to revisit that maybe we did not get to or maybe didn't cover in depth enough. So we will be re-examining that in the fall, but I think that's a great idea if we can put something out so parents have an idea of what that will look like. And I think a lot of that will look different depending on whether students are full-time back in school face-to-face or doing a combination of face-to-face and remote.
And on that same note, Bob, what is the plan to get students back to grade level standards? I would imagine that continuing of remote learning may have an impact on that plan. Has this been considered about getting students up to standard?
Yeah, we are taking a look at different assessments that we would issue in the fall because we really want to get a baseline of where students are at and where we need to really focus on and communicate that home with parents as well. So we will be taking a look at not only a social emotional probably screener, but also academically taking a look at where our students are at and where we need to go. We have already started grade level conversations and content area conversations with staff, taking a look at what do we need to do come fall to help get our students up to speed and really get a solid foundation of where they're at right now.
What ideas are being considered to help teachers with mask enforcement? Teachers have so much placed on them already, and it seems like it will take away from their primary work if they are having to watch kids in hallways, be constantly monitoring masks, etc.
Yeah, I hear that question come up, and I will say that I think part of that's going to be educating our students and our staff as well. I mean, I think we've done a good job thus far with our own employees reinforcing our remembering to put up a mask. But I created a fire drill. Our students are excellent at following fire drills, and I think they're going to be good at keeping a mask on as much as possible. I really think that we'll probably be spending less time, or if it is, we're just reminding our students to keep their mask on. Or if we're realizing they need a break, then maybe it's every whatever it may be, 45 minutes, maybe we take a break and we go outside and take the mask off for 5 minutes and come back in. I think part of it is we're going to have to see how this rolls out.
If we have suggestions or requests, i.e. the syllabus, where can we send this information at this time?
Yeah, if you have suggestions, you can feel free to send it to me. And what we'll probably do is, I think that'd be good to have a link on maybe on our website where people could put that. So if you do have suggestions, for now, you can definitely send them to me or to Courtney, and we can take a look at those as well, or make sure we get them to the correct subcommittee.
Will the PowerPoint presentation shown today be made available online for our review?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So I can definitely have that shared online as well. I think the first one's online as well. So.
And I think that's all the questions so far. Does anyone have any lingering questions they want to ask?
Well, while people are thinking, I just want to say, I know we're coming up to the end of the time. I really appreciate you checking in. I will be probably doing these about every 2 weeks. So stay tuned as we learn more information from the Office of Public Instruction, or as we start to finalize some of our recommendations from some of our subcommittees. We will be sharing that. The minutes will also be posted online on our website, so I really encourage people to go there, so that way you can keep informed on what those subcommittees are talking about. And if you have a particular question or a particular comment that you think we need to know about, we'll take a look at seeing what we can put up on our website. But in the interim, you can email Courtney or myself. I will make sure Courtney will send that PowerPoint and we'll get it put up on the website so people can see it. But we will do this. I appreciate it. I know I don't have every answer right now, but we will have answers, and we are working on those things. We have a very short timeline in order to figure all this out, because there are so many pieces to operating a school under these challenging times. So we are working on it. We're working really hard to hit that August 1st deadline, and we'll make that plan available for folks to take a look at.
It looks like Bob also maybe posting the subcommittee member names would be helpful for some of the participants.
I believe they're on there. I believe if you go to the subcommittee, and I think it's a down arrow, it should show who is on that subcommittee. So the names are there. They should be, at least they were when I checked the last time on the website. So also will be, so the members are on there, and if they're not, I will make sure that they get up there.
Bob, it looks like a lot of the participants are thanking you for your time and supporting teachers and families, and hearing others' thoughts and concerns they find really helpful, and are really appreciative of you hosting these.
Yeah, and I hope this format is beneficial. I know a lot of you are probably tired of Zooms, but I'm just trying to think of a way that I can communicate it out rather than putting everything in a long email that most people probably won't read. So, but I'll try to keep it the PowerPoint short and really hit the points that I think most people are interested in. And we'll continue to do this about every 2 weeks. I really appreciate it. Next one will be a morning, and then the following one will be an afternoon. I'm trying to divide it up and be conscious of people's work schedules. So, but I do appreciate you checking in today, and thank you very much for your support. We will get answers, and we'll keep working very, very hard for you. So, and I appreciate our staff. They're working really hard under really challenging conditions right now.
Awesome. I think that's it, Bob.
Well, thank you, everyone, and I hope you have a wonderful evening, and thank you for your support. We really appreciate it. Thank you, Courtney.
Let's see.